Welcome to ideamix Performance and Wellness, where world-leading coaches and scientists explain how their research can help you achieve your personal and professional goals faster.
Hi, it's Sandra Yanti, co-founder and CEO of ideamix Coaching. Coaching's played an important role in my life. It's helped me through my journey to become a powerful leader, mother, and wife. ideamix coaches help you increase your self-awareness, improve your problem-solving skills, and evolve your habits to achieve your goals. All things I'm grateful to have learned and done through my own coaching journey. Our easy 1-minute assessment matches you with an ideamix coach that best fits your needs and values. Each ideamix coach is vetted and experienced and helps clients map and achieve their wellness, professional, and business goals. If you or someone you know could benefit from coaching, visit our website at www.theideamix.com. We also know that not everyone can invest in coaching right now, and that's why we provide free coaching in our Coach Shorts episodes. If you think someone you know would benefit from it, please share our podcast with them. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Welcome to Coaches to Know, a podcast short designed to demystify coaching and help you, our audience, understand what coaching it is and how it can help you. I'm your host, Jamie, and today I'm very excited to be here with Coach Callan to discuss coaching for transitioning to a new role. And Coach Callan has been coaching for 7 years. She has a diverse career portfolio that spans education, private banking, and nonprofit fundraising before launching her own coaching company. Her experience, as you all heard, as a professional pivoter makes her an ideal partner for those seeking new adventures or their next big role. Her clients are typically senior level women, VP to C-suite, and mid-sized Fortune 500, mid-sized companies, Fortune 500 companies, professional services firms. And she's coached people at companies such as Google, Meta, and Accenture. Welcome, Coach Callan, and thank you for joining us here today. I'm very excited to be talking about what I think is an interesting niche and expertise that you have on new roles and tackling new roles, how to do that. So why don't we just start by sort of laying out the framework and talking about what do we mean by a new role? And is that a new role in the same organization? Or is that a new role in a different organization? And why somebody should consider this type of coaching?
Totally. Well, it's great to be here. And thanks so much for inviting me to have this conversation. I have to say, early in my career, I didn't own the professional pivoter brand as much as I do now, but I definitely think it is somewhat of a superpower. So coaching at the point of transition and going into a new role is really a paradigm shift for a lot of people, to be completely honest. I think we think about coaching when we feel like something's wrong, or we think about coaching when we feel like we need to get a promotion, or there's a transition that's a little bit more of a challenge, right? And yet, when we're going into a new role, whether we are stepping into a new organization or we're stepping onto a new team, we have such an opportunity to redefine for ourselves what we want our leadership vision to look like, what we want success to look like, what we want ourselves to bring to the table, and what we want to continue to develop in ourselves. And it's a real opportunity for either the company who wants to invest in this or the individual themselves to ask themselves, like, what's next for me in this next 2 to 5 year season, and how can I be really intentional about it? So clearly speaking, it's for the person who is starting a new role, but it could also be someone who is moving into a new role within the same organization.
And is there a situation that you find that people maybe, for lack of a better word, say need it more? Does it tend to be more helpful when you're switching organizations, or actually does it tend to be helpful when you're staying in the same organization? Because sometimes I think when your broader context tends to be the same, sometimes it's harder to shift, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I would say that most people engage in this, and it can be most transformational when you are walking into a new role in a new organization. And there's a few reasons for that. I completely agree with you that as we are moving into, let's say you're in the same organization, but on a new team, you can definitely feel like you're kind of carrying more with you from your previous experience and the previous perception of you, which tends to actually be what a lot of my clients want to focus on in that situation, is like, how do I shake some old perception and build some new perception? how do I like develop new relationships, but also maintain others? That tends to be more of the like a transition on the edge, if you will. But
Hmm.
most people engage in it when they're like, okay, gosh, I have like what feels like a blank Google Doc in front of me. I have this cursor blinking at me, and I'm really excited about this role, and I'm really excited about going into this organization. I just want to be sure I'm doing it with intention. I want to be
Hmm.
sure that I'm doing it with the fullest amount of self-awareness. Like, do I really know who I am right now? Do I really know what I bring to the table and where I can continue to grow here?
Excellent. I mean, I love that analogy of the sort of the blank Google document, because I think it's something that we can all relate to. And I think sometimes, when you do have that blank Google document, it can be it's it's always easier to edit than it is to start from scratch, I think, in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways, right? We're much better at sort of maybe a revising language or revising thoughts than we are from like, well, what are the thoughts I have? Who is it that I want to be? These big questions. So there's a lot, I think, that when you're coaching into a new role, and I mean, obviously these are big questions. So can we focus on like, what are the top three topics that you normally address, or issues that you address, or that you look at when you're coaching somebody through this process? And how do you decide what to work on?
Yeah. So the analogy that I like to use when thinking about starting a new role is like we're climbing a mountain. And every one of us has a backpack that we've been carrying with us since basically the beginning of our time, filled with our strengths and our skills and our mindsets and our past experiences. Um, those managers we had that defined what management looked like to us, the relationships that we built, the expectations we put on ourselves, all those performance reviews that we may or may not have agreed with. We have this backpack and we're going up this mountain, and we really need to take a moment to take the backpack and like unpack it and look at like, okay, what does this mountain climb require? And when I sit down with my clients who are like, I know I've got this backpack and I know I need to unpack it, the first question that I ask them is, well, what's this mountain that we're climbing anyway? Like, what is the role? What is your vision for success in this role? And the honest answer for most people is, I know about 80% of the vision, but I'm not 100% sure because I haven't started yet. I just don't know. Like, I think I'm going to this point, but we'll figure it out. But in having the first initial picture of that vision, we then take their backpack and say, okay, what's going to work for you? What's not? And I love to use a framework that helps me as their coach to organize my brain and helps my client to organize their brain. It's called KSW. K stands for knowledge. That's the stuff you need to know, right? That's the who makes this decision? How do I file my expenses? Where is this in the filing base? Like all the knowledge. S is skills. So what are the skills that I have or that I don't have? What do I need to polish? What do I need to refine? And then W is will or mindset or belief. And what we first do is we kind of say, okay, we know what the vision is for where you're going to go, and we know where you are now. What do you think you need to look at and interrogate in the knowledge, skill, and will department in order to be successful? And that helps us to define the actual key topics. That said, every person is unique, of course, but there are some trends on what we end up talking about.
Yeah.
The first and foremost, this is a huge one for folks I'm talking with right now, is just how do I want to show up? Like kind of on the first day, but just in general, like what is both authentic to me, but also necessary in this particular organization? Because every organization is different. How do I want to present myself? Because I think we're all aware to some degree that we teach people how to treat us by how we act, right? So how do I kind of show up in that space to engender credibility and confidence and openness to learning and all of those great things that I want to be? The second really popular topic is about setting boundaries. So you read my bio before. I work with some pretty high achieving people. They have really high standards for themselves. And a lot of them have a habit of going into a new role and just letting it consume them, doing the 16, 17-hour days. And that's completely understandable. I've done it myself too, because there's so much coming at you, but it is also such a hard habit to break. once you kind of feel like you're onboarded and you know what's happening. So we really talk about like, what are boundaries? And how are you going to kind of have this career and this ambition work within the biggest picture of your life and your priorities? And, be sure that you can show up in the way you want to in those early months, showing you're committed and you care, while also being measured. And then the third one that comes up a lot is just like letting go of what's not going to serve you in this role from your past experience. And this can be as, will based, if you will, as perhaps you relate to managers in a specific way because of managers you used to have. Or perhaps you expect there to be a culture that there isn't in this organization. I can give you a really quick story. When I went from working on the desk at the bank at JP Morgan to working in a nonprofit environment, I had some habits in place that were pretty simple to me. Like, we kind of always, at JP Morgan, we kind of always let each other know where we were at all times during the trading day, because that was important information. Like, are you at lunch or are you just grabbing coffee? Can you be here to execute a trade? Can you not? And so I had this habit when I went in to Teach for America of being like, hey team, I'm going to get lunch. Hey team, I'm going to pick up copies. And finally my manager sat me down and was like, Callan, really need you to stop. You don't need to do that. We don't need to know. Like, and it was just a small and completely harmless example of, you can bring one culture of an organization into another without even knowing it. So I have a lot of conversations with clients who are like, okay, let me just get clear that like what got me here is not necessarily going to get me there. And I need to just figure out what this experience is.
That last point is very interesting. I think it's really hard for people to imagine that they need maybe to develop new habits in order to be successful and to achieve their vision of success, we'll say, and whatever that looks like for their company, for them. And we often talk about it in terms of promotions, right? Once you get a promotion to a manager, for example, you really, you have the hard skills, but maybe not the soft skills to succeed as a manager, for example. But we don't actually think about that a lot in terms of just doing a new role, right? And I think it probably comes from the legacy of thinking about a career as a linear pathway. A little bit, but also our sort of how humans are just resistant to, or but just like habitual creatures, right?
Absolutely. Well,
and it's really hard to change.
Well, it's also a paradigm of you go through an extensive interview process and you get the job, and there's this understandable belief across the whole team that this is like a perfect fit. And so you're like, okay, so I'll move in here and like, I'm great and they're great and we're this great jigsaw puzzle match, and all of that can be true. But again, you still got your backpack. You got your backpack, right? We spend so much time and energy, and companies spend so much money on the interview process, and we get so excited that this is that we maybe feel like everything should be okay. And that's something I really want to emphasize here too, is I think some people feel insecure or maybe a little bit awkward about engaging in coaching at this point in their career, because they're like, gosh, shouldn't them hiring me have been the key indicator that everything is going to be fine? And it's really like, yeah, sure, it is. And also, this is a massive transition. Like, it just is what it is. It's the new people, it's new ways of working. And what I'm hoping that most people find is that they've taken a role that follows the rule of thirds. I don't know if you follow like Olympic athletes, but they have this idea of the rule of thirds. Like, a third of your training should be really comfortable, a third you feel like you should excel at, and a third should be terrifying. It should just be kind of tough, right? Like, I hope that's true for people who've taken new roles. So like, being having coaching in this transition, but also like talking about what you're going to do when there is that stretch moment is really helpful.
And how you can manage that stress moment, again, by, for example, setting those boundaries. That's beautiful. I love the analogy and the way that you can frame it when you compare it to, for example, how an Olympian who, is at the top of their game is going to train.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, all Olympians have coaches, right?
They all do. They all need
Um,
them.
yeah. I think it's a great segue though into our next question, which is, if I'm an individual thinking shopping around for a new role, at what point do you think it's best to engage a coach to help me with this transition? Is it before I start? Is it after I start and, get my sea legs? When do you think is the best time?
I think this is one of those coaching engagements that has a bit of a sliding scale of cadence before, like, as you engage with it. So I have seen probably the most successful engagements start with a few weeks before the person walks into their new role. Because that way we can have some of those level setting conversations about how do I authentically represent myself, but also meet the organization where it is. How do I kind of interrogate a little bit of what's in that backpack? But that's much more of a kind of exploratory conversation. It's a little bit like we think we know what we know, but we don't really know. My firm belief is that all onboarding periods are actually 1 year. They are not 4 weeks. They are not 3 months. They are not even 6 months. It's 1 year, because in most jobs, 1 year is a full cycle of work, right? I wouldn't suggest necessarily working with a coach for a year. I think you can get a lot done in phasing over a 6-month period. And like I said, maybe the first couple of meetings are, 1 or 2 before you get started. And then you meet every 2 to 3 weeks for a 6-month period. That early 90 days is going to be more about just understanding everything around you and kind of getting that 20% more of the vision that I talked about before, like really seeing the summit of the mountain for what it is. And then the next phase, it's going to be like, okay, well, how do I act in that? How do I show up in that? And as, by the way, I'm not operating in a vacuum, as I interact with other people, as I try to get things done, as I try to influence change, what knowledge, skill, and will challenges are coming up that we can address. So it could be, 1 hour long sessions for a 6 to 7 month period and really help move the needle fairly quickly at a time where I think a lot of us feel excited and slightly overwhelmed by everything going on, and also a little bit vulnerable. Sometimes companies are like, why should we hire a coach if we have really good managers who will work really hard to build rapport and psychological safety and all those things? And my answer in this particular moment of a new role is because trust takes time to build. And people are coming. You could have all the best practices in place and your managers could be absolutely phenomenal, and still that manager and that person need to get used to each other. And so having a coach who's kind of there on the sidelines with the person really helps to move them forward fast.
That's a very good sort of idea to wrap up on. I mean, I would say that one of the things that we hear often at ideamix is that people really appreciate having the outside perspective, right? Because, no matter how good your managers are, no matter how sort of good their people skills, there's always this perception that there's a level of bias that enters into whatever they're doing and how they're behaving, because they're motivated for a certain, they've got skin in the game. Right. And a coach's skin in the game is to help you with whatever that goal or focus is. So coming in as an outsider is helpful for perspective. And I think it's just helpful, a lot of times with big transitions, to have somebody to talk to.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Who, by the way, is not like mom or partner or sister, because if you talk about skin in the game,
yes,
they have their biases too,
Exactly. It really is about that level of independence. Well, Callan, I want to thank you today for this conversation. This has been very insightful. And to our audience, if you would like to work with Coach Callan or one of our other qualified coaches, please visit us at ideamix.com. And thank you to everybody for listening.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe wherever you listen and leave us a review. Find your ideal coach at www.theideamix.com. Special thanks to our producer, Martin Maluski, and singer-songwriter Doug Allen.